Hey guys, it's Matejuss here, and in today's video I will be showing you the weirdest weapons used in World War II. So without further ado, let's start. Japanese kamikaze pilots were a valuable resource for the Japanese Imperial Army, but they were a limited resource that Japan wanted to use to its full potential. Because of that, the Japanese military decided to design more powerful weapons for their kamikaze pilots. And with that, the first plane intended for one-way trip was created, Yokosuka MXY-7 Ohka, nicknamed by the Allies as the Baka bombs. MXY-7 was a rocket-powered kamikaze flying plane bomb intended to be used to sink American aircraft carriers. MXY-7 had a very high speed, but a very short range. Because of this, they were needed to be carried by a bomber with higher range, which was a problem since the Japanese bombers could be shot down by Allied fighters. These rocket kamikaze bombs delivered a much bigger punch when they struck American ships, but they rarely sank any US vessels. MXY-7 saw action in the Battle of Okinawa with limited results, sinking a few US vessels and transport ships. Improved versions of MXY-7 were developed but were never deployed, because by that time Japan lost the war. Landmines are very deadly and effective weapons, but what if they were mobile? That is the question that the German military asked before deciding to make a mobile mine. And so Goliath tracked mines were born. Goliath mines were unmanned ground vehicle bombs that were intended to be controlled by a remote. Goliaths were single-use devices, which meant they were like kamikaze planes on ground and without a human crew controlling them. They could carry from 60 to 100 kilos or 130 to 220 pounds of high explosives, depending on the model. There were a lot of problems with Goliath mines. First, they were single-use weapons. Second, they were very expensive. Third, they were slow. Fourth, they were impractical and very ineffective. Goliath saw action in early 1942 on all fronts in the Soviet Union, Italy, and even on D-Day, but they weren't that successful in reaching their targets. But when they did, they actually managed to inflict some serious damage, but in the end, they weren't worth it. Interesting concept that didn't work at all. You're probably thinking, balloons were used in World War II? What? Well, Japan had some very interesting ideas for sure, and this balloon is one of them. Fugo balloon bomb was a hydrogen balloon loaded with explosives or incendiary firebombs. Balloon could carry up to 15 kilograms or 33 pounds of explosives, or up to 12 kilograms or 26 pounds of incendiary bombs. Japan's original plan with this balloon was to inflict terror among the US population and to cause ecological damage. This plan didn't work as effective as Japanese had hoped, because weather is unpredictable at times, so the balloons were not the most reliable method of bombing the US mainland. Despite not being that useful, Fugo balloon bombs were in fact the first weapon that had intercontinental range. Impressive. Lots of these balloons were found in several US and Canadian states, such as California, Alberta, Nevada, Washington, and even some non-West Coast states such as Michigan. The Axis powers had a lot of weird weapons in their catalog, but probably the weirdest World War II weapon was from the Allied camp, the Great Panjandrum. Panjandrum was supposed to be this massive explosive wheel of death that was rocket propelled, but it turned out to be a ridiculous looking wheel that couldn't go that far without collapsing by itself. Panjandrum was intended to be used to break concrete defenses that made up the Atlantic Wall, a series of coastal defenses built by Nazi Germany to defend against any Allied naval invasion into Western Europe. So it was supposed to be launched from a landing craft, rolling through the water onto the beach, and finally reaching the concrete walls and bunkers. But there was a problem. That didn't work. The first test of Panjandrum took place on 7th September of 1943 on a public beach, despite the wish for the test to be a secret, and it was a failure. Rockets that were supposed to propel the wheel of death failed or fell off, and the Panjandrum lost its track quickly before even reaching the end of the beach. Despite this, the British didn't give up, and they performed several more tests that also ended in failure. The final test of the Great Panjandrum was in January of 1944, and despite adding a third wheel and attached steel cables to make it more stable, it failed miserably again and was immediately scrapped. The Great and Mighty Panjandrum, despite all of its failures, remains in my opinion the weirdest World War II weapon of all time. And that's it for this video. Let me know which weapon was weirdest to you in the comments below. Next video will be probably a Q&A video. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.